I need to play that game. It's like everybody I know plays that game, except for me. Alrighty. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome everybody to Devy Owner's Manual Episode 4. Here to review and cover all things Devy, college football related. Follow us on Twitter at Devy Manual, and our email address is devyownersmanual@gmail.com. Send us an email if you have any questions. If you want to send us a picture of your roster, let us know what you think we should do. We can glad to help you out. And also a very special thank you to Chris and Adam from Dynasty Owners Manual for allowing us to be a part of their podcast family. I'm going to introduce my co-host, Andrew. Andrew, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, Dwight. How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Just not ready for all this snow and winter crap. And
oh, yeah, that stupid white stuff.
Yeah, if you're listening to this in California, screw you. Anyways.
they have the fires. So.
I know. Fires, hurricanes, sometimes I'd rather have snow, to tell you the truth. I tell you.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, the first segment, we're going to go through a quick recap of the games last weekend. Andrew, there was a lot of dominant wins by the top teams this last week. Let me try that over. Andrew, there was a lot of dominant wins by a lot of the top teams. Was there one performance that stood out to you by a team?
Yeah, no, it was kind of unfortunate there wasn't a lot of upsets like the week before. It kind of spoiled us. There was only one team I think I saw in the top 12 or so that lost. I can't remember who it was, but it wasn't anything that was completely unexpected.
I think they mentioned the top 10 stayed the same for the first time in quite some time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was Kentucky that lost, and it was actually a pretty one-sided game. That was actually who I looked at and saw was the most dominant performance. Tennessee beat Kentucky 24-7. Your upset, you called, with your horrible rendition of Rocky Top. Benny Snell really couldn't get going in that game. Kentucky's offense in general just couldn't get rolling. They've been really living or dying with Benny Snell. They haven't had great quarterback play. Even if they would have had any quarterback play, the player that made the biggest impact for Tennessee was their junior linebacker, Darrell Taylor. He had 7 tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 4 sacks. So he had himself a pretty decent game and didn't really give Kentucky a chance to really get their head out of the ground and get things going for them.
Okay, ask me the same.
Sorry.
It's all right. I'm exhausted. My eyes aren't functioning.
Who, for you, Dwight, would you say was the most dominant performance you saw?
I was impressed with Washington State. It was what I thought was a potential trap game. It would be a little bit more of a dangerous performance by them. And Gardner Minshew looked phenomenal. Like he has great pocket presence. He's Mike Leach has an offense that just fits him very, very well. And their defense is playing pretty decent too. They're lining up here to have a huge showdown in 2 weeks against Washington. Here in 2 weeks, that weekend after, or not this weekend, but the weekend after, that weekend after Thanksgiving, there is some hella good football games that weekend for college football.
Rivalry week's always fun. As a Florida fan, I always look forward to Florida State, especially this year since they aren't playing very well. But you get Michigan, Ohio State, it's going to be a big college playoff impact game. You're going to get Oklahoma, West Virginia. You're going to get, you talked about Washington State. So lots of good games.
Michigan, Ohio State.
Yep.
Michigan, Ohio State. Yep.
What was one thing? Oh my God.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, you're good.
I thought I lost you.
No, you're good. One thing I did notice this weekend, though, in a dominant performance as well, was Alabama's 24-0 win over Mississippi State. Tua, I really think his knee is bothering him, but I think they're just so much better across the board for everybody that it's not really coming up as much. And they're playing the Citadel this week, which is always a tune-up game before they play Auburn. They always have somebody lower on the totem pole, kind of as a warm-up and a walkthrough of sorts. I wouldn't play Tua.
You cut out a little bit.
Oh, you're cutting out again. Hold on a second.
Internet sucks tonight.
Yeah, they taught me this with Dynasty Game Night. Do I sound better?
Yeah, no, it's just my internet. My internet's not the greatest out here.
Okay. They taught me if you click like the little bars at the top of Google Hangouts, that's just for the video quality. I just turn it down to very low, and that usually helps.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that they play to hardly at all. I would be surprised if he makes it even through the first half. I imagine they'll be up 28-0 on the first 4 drives, and they'll take him out. It's just too critical for them coming up, going into the playoffs and stuff. Yeah, I don't see them playing him very much.
Yeah, especially, I mean, you got Jalen Hurts, who's won you a national championship, so it's not like they have somebody who's never gotten their feet wet as a backup. So I just don't see why they would play Tua. I could see him going in for 1-2 drives, but that's it.
Right. Your upset of the last week was a 2-point conversion away from becoming true. What do you think about Oklahoma at this point of the year? Do you think they can crash the party in the playoffs?
I talked about it last week, and I've talked about it, I think, in the few episodes we've had. This Oklahoma defense, I heard somebody say it this week, and I can't remember who it was, and I apologize. It's like they forget to tackle every other play. They just don't get stops. They give up a lot of points. Oklahoma State looked very, very good. Ty Wallace was phenomenal. I think he's going to be the next big Oklahoma State wide receiver, following in James Washington, Des Bryant, and all of them. But I just don't think that Oklahoma defense is going to be able to do anything for them. Even if they somehow get by West Virginia potentially twice, I don't think if they make it to the college football playoff, I don't see them getting past, because they'll go in as the 4. Alabama will put 50 on them, and it won't be anything good for them.
Oh, I totally agree. So we're going to go over the stock watch for this week. Andrew, were there some players that helped themselves and some that hurt themselves with their performances this last week?
Yeah, no, there was a couple players I noticed. I'll save my favorite one for prize sticker, but one I really think helped his draft stock, and he's continuously doing it. So since their one loss of the year was Will Grier, I think a lot of people are finally starting to turn around on him. Benjamin Albright isn't, as me and him had discussed previously in the week on Twitter, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just think Will Grier, as far as the age thing, I think Baker kind of broke that whole scare this year. He was an older quarterback coming in. I don't worry about systems anymore. I think Baker and Russell Wilson and a lot of them have broken that. I think it was Matt Miller said it the other day, in the pro level, there's no system quarterbacks. You can either play or you can't, and I think Will Grier can play. Last week, he put up 25 for 39, passing for 343 yards and 3 touchdowns. He did have 1 pick, but I do see him. I think he'll be old enough and mature enough to ace the draft process and kind of be able to just see his stock climb from there. I'm finally seeing some light at the end of the tunnel of this quarterback class, but I'm trying not to get too excited, but we'll see how it goes come April. And then as far as my stock down, the aforementioned Benny Snell on Kentucky, he was held to 81 yards on 20 carries. That's still 4 yards a carry, which is decent, but that Kentucky offense, if it would have got anything going, they would have been able to handle Tennessee, or at least be in the game a little bit more. And then to continue with the running backs, more of a disappointment, I would say, than really a stock down, because I don't see it impacting his actual draft stock, is David Montgomery at Iowa State. Had that physical altercation that led to the little mini brawl against Baylor. At the point in the game before he got ejected, he only had 11 carries for 53 yards, but now he's going to miss the first half of a big Texas game, which would have a lot of scouts' eyes on him. Again, I don't think he'll lose anything as far as draft stock and value, but I think it's more so just going to be disappointing that we lose a half of him against Texas, who has a very good defense. Okay. And then for you, Dwight, who are your stock ups and stock downs?
He had a couple offense and a couple defense for up. The tight end from Alabama, Irv Smith Jr., is starting to really stick his name in there as first round consideration. Even I've heard in some mock drafts, they have a tendency there to recruit really good tight ends and then just not use them as well. and he's got some work to do on blocking, as most, but he's slowly, steadily making. I don't have any stats in hand, of course, but I think last week he had 7 catches for 65 yards, something of that sort, and he's just been slowly integrating more into the offense, and it helps having a quarterback that can pass as well. Running back Trevion Williams from Texas A&M, Old Miss last week. He had 2 scores, if I remember right. He's one that I've kind of had my eye on through the process as well, and he looks really good. He has not figured much into the pass catching yet. It's just not something that Texas A&M typically does. So that's something that, might hinder him a little bit in the NFL unless he learns that. And then on defense, I really like David Long from West Virginia, linebacker. He's having a hell of a season and leading a pretty good defense in West Virginia. Has got a huge test coming up this week against Oklahoma State. Last week against TCU, and was just, it was evident how much better he is than all the other players on the field when he's on the field. I think he's got a pretty bright future ahead of him. And then another linebacker, also Willie Gay Jr. from Mississippi State. He had 2 tackles also had an interception of Tua there. So he definitely is another guy. I say definitely a lot. I'm sorry about that. He's one of those guys that will come into the play as probably a later pick. He'll be like a 4th, 5th round probably. We've got some linebacker. This defensive draft has got a lot of really good players coming in, and actually I think Willie Gay is a sophomore if I remember right. But he's another guy who I like quite a bit coming out. And then the only person I really thought going down is just, I think Dwayne Haskins this was against Michigan State, a good chance for him to prove himself and to bounce back. And I don't think I don't picture him doing much against Michigan in rivalry week. I think he's pretty much at this point out of the Heisman race. Some people say he's still in it, but I just don't see it. I think he's too inefficient. And I think we're starting to see some of the cracks in his game as the season goes along. I think he's still got a future in the NFL still.
Yeah, no, I think with Dwayne Haskins, we're seeing that classic Ohio State quarterback dilemma where the more you see of them, like Cardell Jones in that college football playoff, everyone came out of that thinking, oh my God, he's going to be the next big quarterback prospect. And now he's 3rd string in San Diego, I think. But it's one of those things, and JT Barrett is 3rd string down in New Orleans. I think Haskins has a chance to actually play a little bit at the next level. I think he's definitely going to need to stay a year. And Matt Miller put out his big board this week, and he put in there he didn't have Dwayne Haskins ranked on his quarterbacks because he said his school sources are saying he's going to be staying most likely. But we'll see how that plays out. Things could change. Injuries could happen. So it'll be interesting see with him.
I'm not a pro scout. I'm not going to ever pretend to be. But what and their system doesn't fit them the best, I don't believe. Like, I would like to see him in a little more wide open offense. And whereas Ohio State tends to play a little more pro style, a little more run heavy, I don't know. I don't see the style of offense they play fitting a quarterback like him. And he's capable of having games where, he in the beginning of the season when he was just balling out, but that wasn't typical Ohio State. I didn't feel like so. I don't know. I feel like the system doesn't fit his strengths as well. And if he can find the right fit in the NFL, I think he will have a future in the NFL.
For sure. Transitioning now to the news and notes segment of the week. College football playoff is the hottest topic, I'd say, in the sport right now, just because it's really going to be who's going to be playing Alabama at that number 4 spot. So for you, Dwight, there's a lot of talk of who will be that 4th team. If Notre Dame wins out, the 4th team will probably play Bama unless they somehow lose to Georgia in the SEC title game, which could happen. Lost my spot here for a second. Georgia's only loss this year is to LSU. Say they win and they're in, I wouldn't argue with Georgia taking a spot there. But I don't think they'll beat Alabama. So that being said, Michigan has to beat Ohio State to take the Big Ten. Really, I'm going to start this over.
You're reading all of my stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm like, hey, hold on.
I got lost. Ignore me.
It's all right.
Anyway, Dwight, there's a lot of talk of who that fourth team will be. Like I said, who do you think it could be?
Yeah, I think Georgia will roll into the SEC title game versus Alabama, only having the one loss to LSU. I think they win, they're in. I mean, it's based on their strength of schedule and everything like that. I don't think there's any way they won't get the fourth seed. Michigan, though, has a very strong case, and it could come down to like slivers of a point, especially if they beat Ohio State, and then they're going to have a conference championship game against Northwestern, which they should pretty easily win, I would think. Oklahoma, they have a rough road. They have to beat West Virginia probably twice. They have to play them next week on the rivalry week at West Virginia, and then they also will get them in a championship game, likely. I don't see them beating them twice. Indeed, even if they do, it may not be enough. I still think I said Michigan or Georgia's most likely, but it's going to be close. It's going to be between Georgia and Michigan. And if for some reason Notre Dame trips up, then yeah, it's all hell's going to break loose. And if Georgia somehow beats Alabama in the title game, then Alabama could potentially fall the top spot. And it could be just an absolute mess. But I think the most likely scenario at this point is Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and then I'm going to say Michigan.
Yeah. No,
is there a team that isn't in the picture, though, that could be there by the time they get to this point, Andrew?
I think if Alabama's in, Clemson's going to be in. So really 3 and 4 are up for grabs. I think I don't want to get too far ahead of the show. I don't think Notre Dame's going to be in the picture. So I think there's going to be 2 spots open. So I could see, well, I guess one more spot open. I see Michigan taking the 3 spot because I think they'll beat Ohio State, win the Big Ten and everything. They're the best team in the Big Ten, hands down. The defense has been incredible all year, led by Winovich and Bush. Shea Patterson's playing phenomenal. They have the run game with Karan Higdon, and Peoples-Jones is just an offensive weapon. Easily the best team Jim Harbaugh's put together there at Michigan. But I think West Virginia, if they can beat Oklahoma twice, Oklahoma has that name recognition and all those little fancy stats that they always add into the equations for the college football playoff. I think 1 will be Bama, 2 will be Clemson, 3 will be Michigan, and then 4 could be West Virginia. The only way that somebody other than West Virginia gets in, I think, obviously if they don't win with Oklahoma, if Georgia can somehow beat Bama in the SEC title game, then it's all hell breaks loose because you have arguments all over the board for everything. So even if they lost, I'd still put Bama at number 1. I just think Georgia would take that spot. So it's fun for 3 through 4. 1 and 2 is set.
That's why we need an 8-team playoff, right?
Right. It would certainly make things easier.
What did they have you do up in the corner that would make your resolution go down?
So, like, if you just move your mouse, do you see like the antenna bars where it's like you can mute yourself?
Yeah.
If you click that, that's just your bandwidth usage. If you click that, go down to like the second option from the left, it'll be very low.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I think I'm getting you, but I keep having little spots where
I have that. I think with every podcast I've done, and I've never had one person say,
then once I listen back, it's fine. So
right.
All right. With all the playoff talk out of the way, now we get to our weekly segment where we give out our helmet stickers. If you don't know what a helmet sticker is, you should watch football because most college football teams, I would say probably most of them, have little stickers they put on their helmets. It's kind of a pride thing. So, Andrew, who gets your helmet sticker for the week for their most amazing performance of the week?
I'm giving mine to the quarterback from Duke, Daniel Jones. He's climbing up a lot of people's draft boards. Actually, I've seen him as the quarterback too across a lot of people whose opinions I respect. Last weekend, Daniel Jones had the big Duke North Carolina game. He went 31 for 54, 361 yards through the air with 3 touchdowns. And then he added on the ground 15 carries for 186 yards and a touchdown. So he had himself a very big game and a very close game against a tough North Carolina defense. I think Jones is going to be one of those people that will sneak up on everybody come draft time. I talked about it in one of my Devy articles for Dynasty Happy Hour. He is coached by the Duke coach. Let me look up his name real quick.
Mike Krzyzewski.
I wanted to see how to say it. I couldn't remember.
Oh, it's not Mike, not Coach K? Oh, sorry.
It is another one of those weird names.
Right.
Sorry.
It's all right.
That's it. Okay. But no, Daniel Jones is coached by Eli Manning and Peyton Manning as quarterback coaches. David Cutcliffe, who's the head coach at Duke. When you watch Jones, you see a lot of the mannerisms that Peyton Manning would have as far as how he holds the ball, footwork and everything. It looks really fluid, and don't want to say robot-like, but you can tell he looks like a Manning without being a Manning. So I think if you didn't know that Archie Manning had some random love child, it looks like Daniel Jones.
Except for the rushing ability, he's a very, very quick guy. Like I was really shocked by watching him at how good he was on his feet, which is becoming more and more a part of the pro game. So I definitely like that. I'm going to give my helmet sticker to this week to probably somebody who most of you have not heard of before. It is Raquel Armstead. He's a senior running back at Temple. This week he had 30 carries, 210 yards, and 6 touchdowns versus a Ed Oliver-less Houston defense. I actually really like him as an interesting prospect. Possibly he's 215 pounds. He's built pretty strong, pretty solid. He doesn't face a lot of strong defenses, obviously, but he looks very good. Like he's very decisive. He doesn't make a lot of moves in the backfield or anything. He's very much sees the hole, has the vision to take it up. He's one of those guys that's going to really be critical that he has a good showing at the combine. So.
For sure. No, it's always fun to see. I feel like the running backs, there's always so many of them because a lot of them can translate to the pro game in some way. A lot of them get sorted out through the Shrine Games, the Senior Bowls, and the Scouting Combine. So I think he'll definitely, with that size especially, I think he could be one to watch as a late-round pick. You want me to do?
Yeah, I was just looking at.
There you
see
go.
if Aaron Jones. Damn it! Oh, Aaron Jones got a passing touchdown. Good. Okay.
A passing touchdown,
or like a receiving. Sorry.
Okay, I was going to say what they do.
Okay.
Hey. You want me to introduce this next segment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So usually at this point we do our Heisman top 5, and we're all tired of talking about Tua and everybody else who's just going to be invited. So we thought we'd change it up and have some fun for a top 5 topic, just our top 5 favorite college players we've watched this year. Just kind of introduce you to a couple more names because that's what this is all about, is just giving you as much ammunition to take into your Devy leagues, rookie drafts, and everything, just so you go into it knowing some names and be like, hey, I've heard of him before. Dwight, if you want to do the honors, you can kick us off with your top 5.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything too groundbreaking. Most of these names I hope you've heard of at this point. First, I wanted to talk about David Montgomery. He's obviously a little down this year, and I'm starting to get a little down on him as in the process, but he's one of the guys I really love to watch play. Like I love watching him in the backfield. I grew up watching Barry Sanders, and he kind of reminds me of that, how he gets, he'll get engaged in the backfield and he'll still somehow make 3 yards out of it. So it's really fun to watch him. He's playing on an offense that doesn't have a very good offensive line, although he doesn't play against a whole lot of really great defenses either. He's just a really fun guy to watch. Very shifty and quick. His lateral agility is probably unlike many you won't ever see. It's pretty awesome. Andrew, what was your first one that you liked?
I'm going to start. My first player I want to talk about is Jordan Scarlett. I'm going to be a little bit of a homer with my Gators. He's their starting running back. Jordan Scarlett, to me, I really, really like the more I get to watch him this year. He splits time with the Michael Pirine down there. So, I mean, as far as a pro prospect, he's going to have a lot more tread on his tires, meaning he'll be able to use a lot more. But he also has the size where he could eventually be a short-term bell cow. I don't see him being a giant presence in the NFL as a whole, but I could see him having a different work. Oh my gosh, what am I trying to say? I could see him being one of the running backs like they've been gearing towards a lot of offenses where not one guy is going to be the workhorse. Kind of like in Kansas City, they have Hunt, who is their workhorse, but Spencer Ware still gets some time here and there. Washington with Adrian Peterson and everybody who's the revolving door there with their running backs, he could work into a committee like that. So he's a fun guy to watch. I think he'll eventually translate, but just for now, I enjoy him running over everybody and outrunning people at the same time.
Okay. Yep. Another one I've wanted to talk about is N'Keal Harry. I mean, it's a game. Obviously, everybody knows the name there. He's going to be a first-round wide receiver pick. He's going to be one of the top ones off the board. He's just a fun guy to watch. Like, he makes these catches that I would like to see a real quarterback throwing him the ball so he didn't have to make such crazy circus catches. But he catches things you don't expect him to catch, and he's obviously has some work to run to make it in the pro game. He's not going to be a seamless transition to the NFL, most likely. He doesn't get the greatest separation, but he runs pretty clean routes, and his hands are just unreal. He's just, I mean, if you Google his highlights, they come up. There's just tons of them. I feel like every other catch he makes is some crazy catch off his fingertips falling backwards. You know, he's just he's exciting. And that's, you know, the casual fan will definitely like that. You know, it's just fun to watch. It's just, yeah, he's just a great, very fun to watch prospect. So who do you have else? Andrew?
Another player I like, we kind of just talked about, so I won't harp on him too much, Daniel Jones. I really, really, really like him. I'm starting to like him more and more. I don't know if it's just because I feel good about myself because everyone else is starting to like him or not, but it certainly feels good when other people start noticing him and evaluating him and putting him up there as the QB2 behind Herbert, who potentially, if Herbert stays, Jones could be the QB1 in this upcoming draft. But like I said, we already talked about Jones, so I won't harp on him too much. So I'll send it back over to you quick, Dwight.
Right. Ed Oliver, I won't harp on him too much either. I feel like I talk about him every show, and he's going to be one of the top 5 picks in the NFL draft, most likely. He's just an amazing talent. He's a guy that you don't see big guys move like that very often. Hold on. Damn it. I should have it memorized by now. I feel like I talk about him now.
What, his size?
Yeah. I think it's 6'5", 295 or something.
Yeah, it's something insane for how quick he moves.
Something giant. Okay. Yeah, he's 6'3", 290 pounds, and he moves like if you put a running back on the line, that's what he looks like. He moves so well, and he's got great handwork, great footwork. He is relentless. He's definitely one that he sees a lot of double and triple teams because of the system he's in. So he's not seeing top offensive linemen, but he's still having to fight through several guys every play. And he's just fun to watch, man. He's going to transition really well to the NFL. He's going to be one of those guys who's going to have 10 sacks his first season. And I'd love to see him fall somewhere that has, our last mock draft, we talked about Cleveland, and that would be a really fun spot for him to watch. I mean, it would be impossible for any team to stop him and Myles Garrett and all the other guys. So it'd be nice to see him on a team that has a complimentary pass rusher and one that doesn't want to rely on him as much. He's a lot of fun to watch.
No, for sure. He's always definitely one to keep track of whenever he is playing. Another player for me, one I think we haven't talked about as much as we should have, wide receiver out of Iowa State, Hakeem Butler. He had the really big breakout game 2 weekends ago with the just mossing everyone all over the place. I do think as far as size and his range, as he's shown with his catching ability, I think he's definitely going to be a big player at the next level. I mean, he's 6'6", 225 pounds. So he's one that I'm getting more excited to. I haven't watched as much on him as I want to. I will admit that, but I am excited to dive into it more as this season winds down. I'm really excited to dive in on a lot of players, and he's one of them at the top of my watch list that I want to get into and watch more of his games.
All right, he really impressed me a lot last year when I was actually watching Alan Lazard. I thought Butler popped out more in most of the games, and the fact that he was productive alongside Alan Lazard was amazing. He's been fun to watch this season. Another guy that I like is Josh Allen, obviously. If you've seen my Twitter profile pic, you know that I love him. And I'm interested to see where he's going to fall. I've seen him as high as 5 on draft picks, and then I've seen him as low as 20. And he's a very interesting outside linebacker who's going to fit that. I honestly see him as like a Von Miller type. His game is very similar if you watch him. He can drop back in coverage. He's very fast. He's got good feet. But he's going to make his hay as a pass rusher. And everybody, I think, is starting to realize where he's at and realize like he's been kind of quiet lately. But if you watch the tape, it's because they've got guys. You don't usually see offenses shadow defensive guys, but they are watching where he is at every play, it feels like, and he's getting engaged. And it's neat to see a defensive player gather that attention. Like sometimes, defenses will scheme against a certain offensive player. But it seems like they are definitely trying to account where Josh Allen is.
For sure. No, I think Josh Allen.
Oh.
Go
ahead.
No, for sure. I think Josh Allen, is the most, him and Ja'Kai Polite are the two I'm most excited about to see where they go, because I think they're big, slim, speedy pass rushers on the edge. I saw a clip this past weekend of Allen bending the edge, and it was beautiful. I think he's definitely going to be a problem at the next level. My last two, I will say, are kind of a combo deal. They are the quarterback and wide receiver tandem out of Buffalo, Tyree Jackson and Anthony Johnson. Talked about Anthony Johnson last week a little bit, but I really, really am starting to like him a lot. He might even break into my top 5 receivers by the time it's all said and done. 6'2", 220 plus pounds. He has the size, but he also has the speed. He'll burn you. And I think he looks really good right now because his quarterback, Tyree Jackson, as I mentioned, he's huge himself. He has a giant arm as well. He's able to hit Johnson on these 75-yard bombs. They almost look like Pat Mahomes and Tyreek Hill at the college level. It'll be interesting to see how Jackson translates. I mentioned in our combined article we did for Dynasty Happy Hour, Jackson, when I watch him, just the way he moves and the way his shoulders are, and it reminds me a lot of Jamarcus Russell. But I think Jamarcus Russell's problem was more off the field than it was on the field, so I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's something to watch for sure. But yeah, those two have me pretty excited to watch the MAC championship if they make it there.
Right, and my final guy is the small school guy with a really cool name, O'Shane Jimenez from Old Dominion. He's still among the leaders in sacks in the NCAA. He got an invite to the Senior Bowl yesterday, so you'll get a chance to watch him there. He's 6'4", 255. He plays on the defensive line for Old Dominion, but he'll obviously be more of a stand-up outside rusher type in the NFL. One of those types that will get down in a 3-point stance eventually, or for some plays, but he'll be mostly a stand-up pass rusher. And he's fun. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's got an amazing motor, man. He is so quick. He's going to be one that's going to destroy the combine. He's one of those guys that's going to come in and they'll see his tape and they'll be like, oh, okay, he's awesome, but then he's going to measure extremely well at the combine. And he's a freak athlete. It's going to be fun to watch where he lands and how they use him. He's a guy I really like, and I just like watching him. It's kind of fun to watch those small school games that are shot on, terrible cameras, and you got to make sure who you're watching and stuff. It's kind of fun. It feels like you're old school scouting when you're watching guys like that. I love it. Oh, and finally we got our weekend preview. We got kind of a quieter weekend. Not a lot of huge marquee matchups this week, but there's a fun small school game this weekend. On Friday night, the Friday Night Lights, Lane Kiffin, Florida Atlantic visiting North Texas, which sounds like a high school game almost at that point. Is there anyone in this small school game we're taking note of, Andrew?
Yeah, there are two players I'm going to be watching. One on the Florida Atlantic. He's had pro prospects all year. Devin Singletary, their running back. He's 5'9", 200 pounds. He's a junior. I don't know if he'll declare or if he'll stay. It's kind of in between at this point, I would say. He's having a down year compared to last year, but even with a down year, he has 1,100 yards, over 5 yards per carry, and over 20 touchdowns. I really like Singletary a lot. I think this year Florida Atlantic has just kind of dropped down as a whole, which has kind of affected Singletary. But a player I'm really liking a lot, I just wish he was a smidge bigger, and then the prospects of it would be talked about more. From North Texas is Mason Fine. He's their starting quarterback. He's a junior. He's 5'11", 180, so he's kind of more of that Kyler Murray size. If he had another 20 pounds on him, I probably wouldn't have as much concern with him. But, I mean, his completion percentage is 63.7%. He has over 3,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 2 picks this year. My favorite part about this North Texas team is their quarterback coach is Graham Harrell, the quarterback from Texas Tech, who had that success with Mike Leach, as we talked about with Minshew. So it's just fun. Graham Harrell, I follow on Twitter. He's constantly talking about Mason Fine, trying to get him nominated for all these awards. And I think he's the best quarterback in the country that seems no one wants to talk about. So I'm really excited to watch Mason Fine against a tough Atlantic team.
Right.
And then for you, Dwight, your Spartans have a sneaky tough matchup against a Nebraska team that's finally seeming to start to get some wheels under them after they destroyed Lovie Smith in Illinois last week. Who are you going to watch in that game?
Well, for me, with Nebraska, it all starts obviously with Adrian Martinez, the freshman quarterback. See how he reacts. He destroyed Illinois, but he's not going to destroy Michigan State that easily. Joe Bacci, the linebacker there, he's probably their best pros prospect at this point. He's rangy, covers a lot of ground, great run defender. I imagine he will be spying on Martinez the entire game. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And they have to go out to Nebraska. So I honestly think Nebraska will win the game. I don't have a lot of faith in the way Michigan State is playing right now. But another guy that I've been to 2 Michigan State games that has really caught my eye and I want to watch closely through the next couple of years is Raekwon Williams. He's a freshman defensive line. He's a massive, massive guy, and he just eats up blocks and pushes around offensive linemen. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch as he gets, more experience under his belt in the Big Ten. So it should be a pretty good game. I imagine both teams have strengths that match strengths. So it'd be curious to see how this one plays out. It should be a hard-fought game, typical Big Ten game.
Now, I have my own opinion of Lewerke and LJ Scott, quarterback and running back for your team at this point. Before the season, they had a lot of hype as far as pro potential. Do you think that's dead at this point, or do you think there's a chance for Scott a little bit? I know me personally, I'm completely checked out on Lewerke, but Scott, I think, as most running backs do, have a chance to make it somewhere. But what do you think?
Yeah, I don't see LJ Scott making it anywhere at this point, unfortunately. He had such hype coming out, especially his freshman year and his sophomore year. He just seemed like he was really good, very decisive. Every game this year, I know their offensive line isn't the greatest, but he's running into the backs of players. His vision's not there. He doesn't seem to have the ability to make the first guy miss, and I don't have any faith in LJ Scott at this point, and I hate saying that because he was such a highly regarded prospect coming in. And as for Lewerke, I think he'll get drafted. I think he can stick around the NFL, kind of like Brian Hoyer, and nobody thought Kirk Cousins was going to be much of anything either. Lewerke's obviously a different mold than those two guys. He's more mobile, but his his accuracy is not anywhere near as good. We give him a couple minutes to learn, or a couple years to learn, and he might be a decent backup in the NFL, but I can't see anything else beyond that. So another matchup of ranked teams this week has Iowa State facing Texas, a game you talked about a little bit earlier. So what are you most excited about in that game, Andrew?
Well, I'm really excited to see, as we talked about, Hakeem Butler. I want to see the wide receiver matchups between Butler and Colin Johnson and little Jordan Humphrey over at Texas. Well, they're not going against each other. I just want to see them kind of go back and forth on who's going to outdo the other. A lot of good wide receiver talent there, like I said. Sam Ehlinger is another fun one to watch at Texas. And then I want to see how David Montgomery responds to missing the first half. Hoping Iowa State comes out with his fresh legs and just tries to run the ball down Texas's throat. It'll be interesting to see how he could do, not getting really a warm-up of sorts. So that's probably my favorite game for the whole weekend, because a lot of them, like we talked about, Alabama, they're playing the Citadel, and everybody else is just kind of doing snoozer warm-ups for rivalry week. So, but this is a sneaky fun one, I think, in the Big 12. Both teams play defense, which is a rare thing. So it'll be fun to watch for sure.
I agree, man. One I'm going to keep my eye on.
And then probably my other favorite matchup this weekend, as far as the upset potential there, Dwight, is probably going to be between Syracuse and Notre Dame. Do you think Syracuse will be able to pull up the upset on them? Or if they do, what would be the crucial part of that?
I think they've got as good a chance as anybody at this point they've played up to this. Syracuse has like this really good underdog. You know, they like that fight. You know, it's something you like to see. They've got one of the top field position, like their differential in field position and turnovers. They're plus 13 on the season. They have the best offensive starting position in the country and the 7th best defensive starting, but everything runs through the quarterback. Dungy. What's his first name? Eric Dungy. Everything runs through Eric Dungy there. He's a dangerous runner. And they're playing really well. They took Clemson to the wire. They're playing with a fight, and they're really fun to watch. They're one that's probably not going to have a lot of stars per se. They have on defense, they have Keelan Whitner. He's kind of like a honey badger type. He plays linebacker, cornerback, safety. He's got 84 tackles this year. Brian Guthrie's another strong guy on defense. He's a first-year starter linebacker there. He has 11.5 tackles for a loss. So they definitely have that fight to them, in that you see it when you watch them play. They just don't give up, and they don't care. They don't have the star powers. Nobody expects them to win, and I think they relish that role. It's a lot of fun to watch them.
No, for sure. That Syracuse team is a lot of fun, and they have a lot of fight in them. I mean, they took Clemson down to the wire earlier in the year. But I think a big factor, and it's kind of weird, it's almost like it's New England and South Bend. They're not talking about Ian Book and his rib, and I'm kind of interested to see if you think that'll be a big part. If he doesn't play, it completely changes the game for Notre Dame and their game plan.
Right. I think if Book does not play, Wimbush has got that senior leadership, but he's just been plagued by inefficiency and turnovers his whole career. I don't think Ian Book's rib injuries are a long-term issue, but they have a potential to be a pesky injury that lasts for the rest of the year. I've had a rib injury before, and they don't go away very easily. And every time you hit them or every time you breathe, they can definitely be an issue, and they can really sap the life of a person. Like, the rib injuries are not fun. You can't play football and heal correctly, depending on how deep it is and things like that, obviously. So I'm not worried about him long-term. Everything looks good so far. Everything's pointing to him playing this week, but I don't know. I'm a little worried. I don't want him to rush him back at the same time. And then on the others, I mentioned Syracuse's defense, a couple guys on Notre Dame's defense. Tavon Clowney is one of the top linebackers. He should be one of those guys that could go late day one, possibly, and definitely day two for sure. He has 87 tackles this year. He's the leader of that defense. And then Julian Love is a tremendous cornerback. Julian
Love is very good.
I've seen him mocked in the top 15, right after Greedy Williams. And then there's also Jerry Tillery. They've got a pretty good defensive line there overall. Jerry Tillery is like the big pro prospect there. He's got 6 sacks this year, and he's just one of those space-eating monsters. He just gathers in tackles, and he's a lot of fun to watch. That whole defensive line has got some talent, so Syracuse is not going to run away with this game by any means. It's going to be a dogfight.
No, for sure. I think Tillery reminds me of in shape Louis Nix from a couple years ago. He has the athletic ability, and he gets to the quarterback, and I like him a lot as a D-line prospect. Right. So then
we got some players to watch this weekend. We've been through some of this and stuff. We've talked about some of the guys in each of these matchups and some of the guys that we love to watch and all that. But Andrew, you're going to focus on a couple guys this weekend. Who are you watching extra close this weekend?
Watching a couple quarterbacks and a tight end. The one tight end's one that you all already know. It's Noah Fant from Iowa. 35 receptions on the year, 452 yards, 6 touchdowns. His size is 6'5", 241 pounds. He honestly looks like the closest thing to Gronk at the college level. He's just so athletic. His ball skills are fantastic. He's a great red zone target. I think on my big board at the end of the year, I probably already should have him penciled in at the top 10, maybe even the top 5 for rookie drafts next year, which is crazy because I don't remember the last time a tight end I would advise somebody to use a first-round pick on in fantasy. But, I mean, if you have a tight end need, Noah Fant might be your guy. Quarterbacks I'm talking about are Eric Dungey, as we talked about at Syracuse. Pro potential with him's really not there. He's just going to be one more of those fun, you look back, college quarterbacks that really makes the game entertaining to watch.
Tebow.
Yeah. I will leave that go because we don't have time to have that discussion.
That is another episode, ladies and gentlemen.
It is. It'll be the Tebow episode whenever we have a lull in news. Anyway, he has over 2,700 yards combined on the ground and through the air. He has 26 touchdowns, 5 picks. Dungey's just one of those fun players, like I said, and he's a good leader for Syracuse. He keeps him in the game. He doesn't turn the ball over, which will be crucial this weekend against Notre Dame. And then another fun small school quarterback to watch is Justice Hansen out of Arkansas State. He has the size to be a potential pro prospect at 6'4", 225 pounds. Not the flashiest of stats, 2,600 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 picks. He's just more efficient, and he's one of those good decision makers. I'd say he can make a play when he needs to for Arkansas State, but I could see him being like a 6th or 7th round quarterback pick. Just team takes a flyer on just to see if he pans out into something. Maybe New England pulls another thing, kind of like they did with Danny Etling this past year in the draft. But those are the players I'm excited to watch. I'm really kind of diving more into the smaller school guys as it gets towards the end of the year because it's harder to find tape on them, whereas the big school guys, there's always stuff to find on them. And then for you, Dwight, here, you watching with your games, or for your players, excuse me.
I'll go right to one of the small school guys, Andy Isabella. He's wide receiver for UMass. He's leading the country in yards from script for a wide receiver. Let's try that again here. The nation's leading wide receiver with 1,479 yards against that Georgia defense. I mean, obviously it's going to be a blowout, but it'll be fun to watch and see if Andy Isabella can play against some pro caliber talent there in Georgia. He's primarily a slot guy. He's shifty, really insanely quick. A couple weeks ago, he's 5'10", 190 pounds. He posted 9 catches for 303 yards 2 weeks ago, which is like unheard of to post that much out of a slot, especially. And he's just a fun guy to watch, and it's gonna be interesting to see him matching up against that Georgia defense. I also like Eno Benjamin from Arizona State. They're playing Oregon this weekend. He's a sophomore running back. He's another guy who's built like it seems to become more of the prototypical build now, 5'10", 200 pounds, a little smaller than you'd like. Maybe you'd want closer to 220. But he has 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns on the ground, and what impresses me most about him is he can catch the ball. This year he's got 30 catches for 200 yards and a couple touchdowns. So he's kind of overshadowed there by N'Keal Harry, obviously. But he's just as much of a driving factor of that offense. And then lastly, it's not a player, it's a game. Like I want to watch Cincinnati versus UC, the Central Florida. The pro prospects, there's a couple guys, but this game is getting the ABC primetime slot Saturday night, like game days going there for ESPN. For Cincinnati versus Central Florida, it's a huge deal. It's going to be a freaking shootout. Like Michael Warren II, is a sophomore tailback. He's a pretty good sized guy, 5'11", 220. He has over 1,000 yards and 17 touchdowns. That's for Cincinnati, I think. Yeah. And then you just want those quarterbacks, Desmond Ridder and Mackenzie Milton, just gunslingers, man. This game is going to be like a 55-49 type game. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. You got anything on that one?
No, I think you pretty much said it all. I'll be honest with you. I kind of got distracted because I just saw it pop up on my Twitter feed that Ed Oliver and Major Applewhite got into a scuffle on the sidelines during the Houston game.
Jeez. What is Major doing there? He is ass kicked.
All I saw was, seriously. All I saw was him telling Oliver to take off a jacket, and then they were coming off for halftime, and Oliver looked like he was going to punch a hole in his face. Anyway.
Yeah.
Apologize for that distraction.
Oh, it's all right, man. I was just talking about a crazy game anyways. It's a Madden game.
No. No, I heard what you were saying. It's just you're always very efficient in what you cover, so I don't have much to add for you there.
All right. Final word, Andrew. What do you got for upset of the week this week, man?
I think, and I'm going to do a little history lesson here for my upset. 2002 Survivor Series. Brock Lesnar had a rib injury, and Big Show beat him for the upset. For all your wrestling fans, there's your little plug there. Especially for my buddy Jordan. But I think the rib injury is going to do in Notre Dame this weekend. I think even if Ian Book plays, Syracuse plays very physically on defense. They knocked out Kelly Bryant 2 years ago and upset Clemson then. I could see them doing that again with Ian Book and just going after him nonstop and trying to be as physical as they can. I think Syracuse pulls it off, and I think Syracuse opens up the door for a new team to be put into the playoff. Because if Notre Dame has one loss, they're done. There's nothing they could do the rest of the year to make up for it.
I absolutely agree. And just real quick, a little side note that the dorky views of my co-host are not indicative of the Devy owner's manual's thoughts. No, I used to watch.
I have no shame.
I used to watch wrestling back in the day, but it's been a while, man. Not since Stone Cold Steve Austin have I watched wrestling.
Oh, geez.
All right, I'm gonna go with Oklahoma State beating West Virginia. I know that kind of throws a kink in what you talked about in the beginning of the show, but West Virginia does have a defense, but they have not really played as efficient, powerful offense as Oklahoma State. It's going to be another shootout. It seems to be the theme of a lot of games these days. Will Greer and Taylor Cornelius. Cornelius is the quarterback for Oklahoma State. They're offensively, the teams are so similar offensively, statistically. Like it's crazy. They're almost like a mirror image of each other. West Virginia has a little bit better of a defensive edge, and it's a huge game for Oklahoma State. So it's because they have to travel and play Oklahoma next week. So yeah, is that right? Yeah,
West Virginia.
They play Oklahoma next week, and they're still kind of sort of in the hunt for everything. And it's going to be a fun game to watch as well. I'm going to go with OK State over West Virginia.
I think I'll put out a poll after this, too, to see who the people think which upset is more likely to happen. Because I think both of them realistically could happen. So it'll be fun to see what other people think.
All right, man. That's it for episode 4. Andrew, you tell the people where they can find you.
Yep, they can find me over at Dynasty Happy Hour still. They can find me on Twitter at DHH_Mandrew. And then I also started writing this week for a new up-and-coming website, just 6 months old, called The Score Crow. I think it's my favorite play on words I've ever seen. So that got my attention right away. So I'll be covering some NFL stuff over there for them and doing some bowl game coverage for them as well. So you can find me there in the meantime. And then for you, Dwight?
Right. On Twitter, I am FF People's Champ. Although I don't think I'm going to win any championships in fantasy football this year. I write for DHH when I have a time. It's been a little dry spell. I've been kind of busy the last couple months. Still getting some articles out at the Fantasy Authority, redraft style there. And obviously on here talking Devy. That's it for this week. Everybody have fun watching college games this weekend and get ready for Thanksgiving and rivalry week. And everybody have a good week.
Excelsior. Rest in peace, Stanley.
Very good ending. I like that. I like that, man. I'm a nerd. I like it.
No, I was pretty bummed out when I saw it.
Yeah, they were like, we were talking at work. Someone said, he died unexpectedly. I'm like, not at 95.
No, he's 95.
I think at 95, you unexpectedly wake up every morning, I would think, you know?
Yeah.
I would think it's kind of it's amazing.
I'm going to send you the link for this Ed Oliver thing. I don't know what the hell happened.
That's freaking hilarious. I think that would be a very quick fight.
Yeah, I don't get, like, he had a jacket on and it's cold, so I don't see what the problem is. Yeah, the caption was Ed Oliver might prefer to wear a jacket this evening. At least he didn't grab his crotch.
Exactly.
And Connor Rogers said everything Ed Oliver's done for this program, and that's the fight you choose to pick. Get the fuck out of here.
Nice. I don't know, man. This whole Cincinnati thing, that's Saturday. I can't wait for that, man. It was like we had a couple other people back out, but it'd be nice to meet Chris and TK and J Mike. And
yeah, no, I wish I could go to that.
Yeah, we'll get up there, get up that area sometime.
I'm applying for a Senior Bowl credential.
Where's the game at?
It's always in Mobile.
Oh, okay. I should know that.
Flights aren't too bad and hotels aren't bad. Everything I looked at is within 2 miles of each other, so it's either super cheap or Uber, or I could walk my happy fat ass. But Jim Nagy was on Stick to Football, and he was saying how he thinks the NFL media has gotten a little bit stale, so he wants to try to get as many young people in there, because they said every conversation you have is a job interview, essentially. So you don't know who you're going to meet and where it could end up.
Yeah, I wonder what the hell that was about the jacket. That seems silly.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
I mean, it said the football team on it. It's not like it said, FUBU or some shit.
Yeah, it's like a Nike or Under Armour.
Yeah, or maybe it was a Nike or something. I didn't see that, but crazy.
Well, I heard my 2-month-old screaming, so I'm going to go downstairs.
All right, bud. I'll talk to you next week, man.
Yep, we'll talk to you. Thanks, Dwight.